Imagine waking up in the morning. Your eyes barely adjust to the light before your hand instinctively reaches for the phone on your nightstand. One swipe, one tap, and suddenly your mind is no longer your own. Notifications flash, headlines compete for outrage, emails demand urgency, and an endless scroll of content pulls you down a rabbit hole before you've even taken your first conscious breath of the day. What you thought was a moment of choice was, in truth, a carefully engineered capture of your attention. This is the world we live in now, an economy where the most valuable currency is not gold or oil or stocks, but the focus of your mind. Corporations spend billions to design algorithms that know you better than you know yourself. They know what makes you click, what holds your gaze, what triggers that small dopamine hit that keeps you coming back for more. You are not merely browsing, you are being bought and sold. Your time, your energy, your attention, these are the real products in the marketplace of the modern age. Think of it this way: every moment of your day is like a coin, and that coin is your attention. When you give your focus to something, you are spending that coin. But unlike money, you can't earn more attention by working harder. You get only so many coins in a single day, and once you've spent them, they're gone forever. The tragedy is that most people spend them carelessly, on endless scrolling, meaningless arguments, or chasing the constant buzz of distraction, without realizing how valuable each coin truly is. The battle for your mind is happening silently, invisibly, every second. It's in the flashing red dot of a notification bubble designed to mimic urgency. It's in the endless autoplay of the next video, the infinite scroll that was invented not for your benefit, but for your captivity. It's in the perfectly timed advertisement that appears just as your willpower is at its weakest. These are not coincidences, they are strategies. Behind every app, every platform, every piece of media, there are teams of psychologists and engineers who study human behavior with one singular mission: to keep you hooked. But the external battle is only half the story. Inside your own mind lives another opponent just as cunning: your impulses. Even when the world is silent, your thoughts race. You think about what could go wrong, what you need to do, what you're avoiding, or what you crave in that moment. Procrastination whispers softly, "Later." Self-doubt murmurs, "Maybe not you." Your brain, wired for survival in a very different world than this one, constantly scans for novelty, for stimulation, for the easy path. That inner noise, combined with the external noise of the digital world, creates a perfect storm that can consume your entire day before you even realize it's happened. Picture your mind as a fortress. Every distraction is like an intruder knocking at the gates. Some come politely, like a soft ping from your inbox. Others storm the walls with urgency and emotion: breaking news, viral outrage, a message marked urgent even though it rarely is. Meanwhile, inside the fortress, restlessness stirs. The guards are tired, the defenses thin. Without training, without awareness, the gates swing open, and your fortress becomes occupied by forces you never invited in. Yet here is the truth most people never fully embrace: your attention is not weak, it is powerful. The same focus that can be stolen in an instant can also be directed with incredible force. History has been shaped by those who mastered their attention. Artists who painted masterpieces, scientists who unraveled the mysteries of the universe, leaders who changed the course of nations. They all shared this one skill: the ability to take ownership of their mind. Think of attention as a beam of light. When scattered, it glows faintly, barely illuminating the path ahead. But when concentrated, like a laser, it can cut through steel. The same mind that feels distracted, restless, or overwhelmed is capable of astonishing clarity and productivity when trained to focus. The challenge is not that your attention is too weak, it's that too many others have learned how to hijack it before you even begin to use it for yourself. Take a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you chose, deliberately, where your attention would go? Not a reaction to a notification, not a distraction that appeared in front of you, but a conscious choice. Most people can't remember. Days blur together in a haze of reaction rather than intention. But life is nothing more than a collection of where your attention has been placed. Where you spend your focus is where your life takes shape. This is why reclaiming your attention is not just a productivity hack, it is the foundation of freedom. If someone else controls what you notice, what you react to, and what you focus on, then they are, in a very real sense, controlling your life. To win back that control, you must begin with awareness. Awareness that your attention is being hunted, and awareness that you have the power to protect it. Start with something simple. Notice your patterns. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, pause. Ask yourself, where do I want my first coin of attention to go? Instead of handing it over to a feed or an inbox, spend it on something intentional. It could be journaling, stretching, reading, or simply breathing in silence for a few minutes. That small act is not trivial. It is a declaration of ownership. It is you saying, "This fortress belongs to me." Throughout your day, continue to observe. Notice the moments when your attention is pulled without permission. Notice the endless pull of the scroll, the subtle lure of multitasking, the way your mind wanders during important work. These observations are like shining a light into dark corners. Once you see the patterns, you can no longer remain unaware of them. Remember this: awareness is the first weapon in the battle for your mind. You cannot defend what you do not see. Once you begin to see clearly, you realize how much of your life has been stolen in fragments. Minutes that add up to hours, hours that add up to days, days that quietly become years. But you also realize something far more empowering. If those fragments can be stolen, they can also be reclaimed. There is a profound power in choosing. When you choose what deserves your attention, you begin shaping your life deliberately instead of drifting through it accidentally. Each decision to focus becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of your future. One day you will look back and see the picture you've painted, not with your intentions alone, but with every moment of attention you directed. That is the quiet truth no distraction wants you to remember. Your attention writes the story of your life, one focused moment at a time. Your attention writes the story of your life, one focused moment at a time, which means, in a very real sense, attention is your currency. Every decision you make about where to place it is an investment in the future or an expense with no return. Some people spend it recklessly, scattering their focus on trivial things, while others learn to treat it like treasure, directing it toward what compounds over time. Imagine carrying a small leather pouch filled with golden coins. Each morning you wake up, the pouch is refilled with a fresh supply, but never more than a set number. You cannot create more coins. You cannot borrow tomorrow's supply. All you can do is spend what you've been given today. The question is, will you spend them wisely? Or will you drop them into the pockets of distractions that promise everything but give nothing back? Most of us are not even aware we're spending. We walk into the day with our pouch wide open, spilling coins everywhere. A scroll through social media here, a heated debate in the comments there, a half-hour lost to clicking through links we don't remember. Those coins are gone forever, spent without thought, without intention. By evening, when we finally want to devote ourselves to something meaningful, a project, a goal, a relationship, we reach into the pouch and find it nearly empty. This is the essence of the attention economy. If you don't decide where your coins go, someone else will. Platforms, apps, marketers, they all line the streets like merchants calling out, offering free samples, trying to lure you to spend just one more coin. They don't care if your pouch empties before you get to what truly matters. Their only mission is to capture as much of your currency as possible, day after day, year after year. Think about the last time you lost track of time online. Maybe you meant to check one message, and suddenly an hour had vanished. That hour was not free. It was purchased with the most precious currency you own. Unlike money, you cannot earn that hour back. Unlike money, you cannot invest it and watch it grow. Time only moves forward, and attention is the way you choose how to experience it. So how do you begin treating focus like the currency it is? The first step is creating a budget. Just as you wouldn't run a household without knowing where your money goes, you shouldn't live a life without knowing where your attention flows. The budget starts with priorities. Ask yourself, What are the three things that, if I invested my attention in them every single day, would change my life? The answers may vary: learning a skill, building a business, nurturing a relationship, strengthening your body, deepening your peace of mind. These are your high return investments. Once you know your priorities, you can begin to allocate your coins deliberately. It might mean setting aside 2 hours in the morning for deep, uninterrupted work on your craft. It might mean designating the evening as sacred time for family, no screens allowed. It might mean carving out 30 minutes for movement or meditation. The point is not to fill every minute with rigid control, but to know where the bulk of your valuable currency is being spent. Now, consider the leaks in your budget. These are the areas where coins disappear without intention: endless notifications, meaningless arguments, busy work disguised as productivity. Some leaks are small, a 5-minute check of your phone. Others are massive, binge watching 3 seasons of a show you didn't even enjoy that much. Awareness of these leaks is painful at first, but necessary. Because the truth is, most of us aren't broke because we don't have enough coins. We're broke because we keep dropping them into holes that never give anything back. It's worth remembering that not every expense is bad. Just as with money, you need some coins for rest, leisure, and joy. Time spent laughing with a friend, walking under the stars, or reading a novel simply for pleasure may not yield material returns, but it enriches your life in ways that matter deeply. The key difference is that you chose to spend those coins. You weren't manipulated into giving them away. You offered them freely. That distinction, choice, is what transforms wasted attention into intentional living. Let's try a thought experiment. Imagine tracking every minute of your attention for a single day like an accountant balancing a ledger. At the end of the day, you total it up. How much went into your long-term priorities? How much was invested in your relationships, your growth, your well-being? How much was thrown away into activities you don't even remember clearly? That daily ledger would reveal, without any judgment, where your true values lie. Because no matter what you claim is important, your attention tells the truth. When you begin treating focus like currency, a shift occurs. Suddenly, scrolling endlessly doesn't feel like passing time. It feels like spending coins on air. Multitasking doesn't feel like efficiency. It feels like scattering coins so thinly that nothing grows. But working deeply on one task, even for a short time, feels like putting coins into an investment account where they'll multiply. That shift from unconscious spending to conscious investing is one of the most powerful changes you can make. Consider someone learning a new language. 15 minutes of intentional, undistracted practice each day may not seem like much, but over the course of a year, that small but consistent investment compounds into fluency. Compare that to 15 minutes of fragmented, distracted scrolling. It compounds into nothing. Both required coins from your pouch. One was invested, the other was thrown away. This principle extends beyond skills. In relationships, a single hour of undivided attention with a loved one can outweigh days of half-present conversation while your mind drifts elsewhere. In health, 30 focused minutes of exercise yield far more than hours of inconsistent effort. Attention magnifies the value of time, which means the quality of your focus matters even more than the quantity of your hours. The next step is protecting your coins. Budgets only work if you enforce them. This means setting boundaries, silencing unnecessary notifications, limiting time on addictive apps, creating physical or digital spaces where focus is preserved. It means learning to say no to requests, to distractions, to opportunities that don't align with your priorities. Every no is not rejection, it is protection of your limited pouch of coins. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. You'll notice that the people who achieve the most are not always the ones who have the most time, but the ones who spend their coins with the most discipline. You'll notice that clarity of values makes budgeting easier, because when you know what matters most, you know exactly where to invest. You'll also notice that your pouch begins to feel heavier, not because you have more coins, but because you waste fewer of them. The truth is, your life is the sum of all the coins you've ever spent. Every book you've read, every skill you've mastered, every friendship you've deepened, every dream you've pursued, all of them were purchased with attention. That truth can be sobering, but it can also be liberating, Because while you can't get back yesterday's coins, you wake up each morning with a new pouch in your hand. Tomorrow, when you open your eyes and feel the pull of the world trying to claim your attention, pause for just a moment. Reach into that pouch, hold the first golden coin in your mind, and ask yourself, where will I invest this today? The moment that question arises, so do the thieves. They lurk at the edges of your awareness, waiting for the slightest gap in your guard. Their goal is not to rob you violently, but to distract you so gently, so subtly, that you don't even notice the theft until your pouch feels lighter and your day is already gone. These thieves come dressed in familiar clothes. The little buzz of a notification, the flashing red dot on an app icon, the banner sliding across the top of your screen, they all pretend to serve you, but their real purpose is to pull you away from what you chose. They whisper, just check this quickly, or this will only take a second, but those seconds compound into minutes, then into hours. Before you know it, the focus you intended for your priorities has been spent elsewhere. Think of a pickpocket in a crowded marketplace. They don't snatch openly. They bump your shoulder, distract your gaze, and slide the coin purse from your pocket before you even feel it. That is exactly how modern distractions operate. Autoplay doesn't ask permission before the next video rolls. Infinite scroll doesn't pause to ask if you really want to keep going. Notifications are designed to feel urgent, even if they carry nothing important. Each of these features is engineered with precision, a pickpocket's hand moving invisibly through the marketplace of your mind. One of the most persistent thieves is the smartphone. It is a remarkable tool, maps, books, music, connection, knowledge all in your pocket. But it is also the most effective attention trap humanity has ever created. Every app on it is fighting for dominance, designed to hijack the same reward circuits in your brain that once helped your ancestors survive. Dopamine fires not when you are satisfied, but when you anticipate something new, and these apps know how to drip feed novelty endlessly. That's why the pull feels so irresistible, even when you're not enjoying it. Social media in particular is a master thief. It thrives on your curiosity, your desire to belong, your craving for validation. A like, a comment, a message. Each feels like a coin gained, when in reality it is a coin spent. You log in to connect, but you often leave drained. The platform is richer, but your pouch is lighter. Another thief wears the mask of productivity. It shows up as endless checking of email, constantly refreshing your inbox to see if someone needs you. It disguises itself as being responsible or responsive, but often it is simply reactive. Real work, the kind that builds something meaningful, requires depth and patience. Constant email checking gives the illusion of work while stealing the very attention you need for what matters most. Then there are the thieves of entertainment, streaming platforms, video games, endless news cycles. They offer quick relief from boredom or stress. They promise escape, and sometimes they deliver it, but the trap is in their design. Episodes are arranged to roll one into the next. News feeds are curated to provoke outrage and keep you scrolling. Games are built with endless rewards that never truly end. What begins as a conscious choice for a short break easily becomes hours of stolen time. The workplace has its own thieves. Meetings without clear purpose, constant interruptions from colleagues, the pressure to multitask on shallow tasks rather than protect time for deep focused work, all of these eat away at your pouch of coins. Busyness has become a status symbol, but busyness is not the same as effectiveness. The thieves thrive when you confuse motion with progress. Even the people around you, often unintentionally, can become thieves. A friend who constantly calls to vent, a coworker who drops by unannounced, a family member who interrupts your flow for small favors. None of them mean harm, but each interaction pulls a coin from your pouch. Without boundaries, the people closest to you can unintentionally rob you of the attention you desperately need to invest in your future. Recognizing these thieves requires brutal honesty. It means admitting that just a quick check is rarely quick. That background noise does not leave your mind untouched. That multitasking is often just attention sliced so thin it's useless. It means noticing how often you hand over coins without even realizing you've opened your pouch. The first step in protecting yourself from these thieves is awareness. Begin to see them clearly. Track where your attention goes for a single day, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Notice how many times you reach for your phone without thinking. Notice how often a 5-minute check turns into half an hour. Notice the exact moment your concentration is broken and ask, was this worth the coin I just spent? The second step is creating barriers. Just as you would lock your doors at night to keep intruders out, you must lock the gates of your attention. Turn off non-essential notifications. Remove the most tempting apps from your home screen. Use app timers to create friction, so opening them feels like effort rather than instinct. Small barriers can make a big difference because most theft happens in moments of weakness, not moments of decision. The third step is replacement. You cannot fight distraction by willpower alone. You must offer your mind better alternatives. If you remove social media from your mornings, replace it with reading, journaling, or a walk outside. If you reduce your news consumption, replace it with intentional conversations with people you trust. Thieves thrive in empty space. Fill that space with investments that pay you back. There is a deeper reason these thieves are so successful. They appeal to ancient instincts. Humans evolved in environments where novelty was rare, where paying attention to every sound or movement could mean survival. That instinct now works against us in a world of infinite novelty. Every buzz, every update, every new headline feels like it might be important. In reality, most of it is noise. Understanding this doesn't erase the instinct, but it helps you see why resisting feels so difficult, and why protecting your attention is an act of strength, not weakness. When you begin to recognize distractions as thieves rather than harmless entertainments, your relationship with them changes. Instead of casually handing over coins, you start asking, what am I trading for this? A half hour of scrolling is not free. It is a half hour not spent building your craft, connecting with your loved ones, or caring for your body. Each moment of attention is a trade, and every trade has a cost. The cost is not only in lost productivity, it is in the fragmentation of your mind. When thieves pull your attention in 100 directions, your ability to think deeply weakens. You feel restless, anxious, unable to focus even when you want to. This is the hidden price of constant distraction. It doesn't just steal your coins today, it erodes your capacity to invest them wisely tomorrow. To guard against this, you must become the gatekeeper of your own mind. Every time you sense the tug of a distraction, pause and ask, does this deserve a coin? That single question can turn the tide. It transforms unconscious spending into conscious choice. It reminds you that you are not helpless, that you are the one holding the pouch. The thieves of attention are not going away. They will always evolve, always find new ways to slip past your guard. But as you grow more aware, more disciplined, and more intentional, their grip weakens. They may still call out to you in the marketplace, but you will learn to walk past them with your pouch intact, saving your coins for what truly matters. Saving your coins for what truly matters is not just about guarding against the thieves outside. Some of the most persistent robbers live within your own walls. You can silence the notifications, log out of the feeds, and shut the door against interruptions, yet still find yourself drifting, restless, unable to hold your focus on the very thing you've chosen. These are the internal distractions, the subtle, familiar voices that tug at your attention from the inside. One of the most common is procrastination. It doesn't arrive with urgency or alarms. It whispers gently, later. Later feels harmless, even logical. You tell yourself you'll get started after one more coffee, one more email, one more scroll. The task waits patiently, yet somehow the day slips away. Procrastination is not laziness, it is avoidance wrapped in comfort. It thrives not because you don't care, but because you fear the discomfort of starting. The truth is, beginning is often the hardest part. Your mind magnifies the task ahead until it feels heavier than it is. But once you take the first small action, opening the book, writing the first sentence, making the first call, the weight begins to lift. Procrastination loses its grip when you replace later with just 5 minutes now. Even the smallest start disrupts the illusion that you must wait for the perfect moment. Another internal thief is mental clutter. Your mind carries an endless stream of unfinished thoughts, reminders, worries, plans, regrets. They circle like birds, swooping in just when you try to focus. You sit down to work, and suddenly you remember the bill you need to pay, the message you forgot to send, the appointment you still haven't scheduled. Each thought tugs at your attention, pulling you in a dozen directions at once. This is why practices like journaling or brain dumping are powerful. By writing down what occupies your mind, you clear the mental desk. The clutter doesn't vanish, but it moves out of your head and onto the page, where it waits without pressing against your focus. Just as you would clear a workspace before beginning a project, you can clear your mind by giving your scattered thoughts a place to rest. Then there is self-doubt, the inner critic who insists you are not ready, not talented enough, not capable. Unlike procrastination, which delays you, self-doubt paralyzes you. It convinces you that the effort is pointless, that you will fail before you even begin. Every distraction feels safer than facing the possibility of inadequacy. The tragedy is that self-doubt robs you of growth before you've given yourself the chance to try. To disarm this critic, you must shift the frame. Instead of focusing on the outcome, whether you succeed or fail, focus on the process. Tell yourself, I will give my attention to this for the next hour, rather than, I must produce something flawless. Progress silences doubt more effectively than reassurance. Each small step forward builds evidence that you are capable, even if imperfect. Internal distractions also emerge as restlessness. You sit down to focus, and suddenly you feel the urge to check your phone, stand up, get a snack, or switch tasks. It isn't that you need these things, it's that your brain craves novelty. This craving is ancient, wired into you as a survival mechanism. But in a modern context, it sabotages deep focus. Restlessness is not a sign of inability, it is a test of endurance. The way through is to train your tolerance for discomfort. When the urge arises to switch, notice it, but don't obey immediately. Tell yourself you will stay with the task for 5 more minutes. Often the urge passes, and your focus deepens. The skill of focus is not the absence of distraction. It is the practice of returning again and again to what matters. Like strengthening a muscle, each repetition builds resilience. Another inner thief is perfectionism. It convinces you not to start until you can do it perfectly, or not to finish because it isn't flawless. Perfectionism feels noble, like a commitment to high standards, but it is often fear in disguise. It keeps you tinkering endlessly, never releasing your work into the world. Attention becomes trapped, circling endlessly around details that don't matter. The antidote is progress over perfection. Remind yourself that rough work can be refined, but unfinished work cannot change anything. Perfectionism demands that you invest all your coins in polishing. Progress allows you to invest in momentum. Better a finished page with flaws than a blank page with none. Sometimes the distraction comes in the form of emotional turbulence. Anger, anxiety, sadness, all of them cloud the mind. When emotions swell, focus scatters. The temptation is to fight the feeling or to drown it in distraction, but both only deepen the storm. The more effective path is acknowledgement. Naming the emotion, I am anxious, I am angry, I am sad, creates a small distance between you and it. In that distance, focus has room to breathe. This is why mindfulness and meditation are not luxuries, but tools. They train you to notice thoughts and feelings without being consumed by them. Even a few minutes of slow breathing can quiet the inner noise enough to return to your chosen task. The mind will wander. The discipline is in returning it, patiently, each time. Internal distractions also include fantasies, daydreams of what you might do, who you might become, how life might unfold differently. These dreams are not inherently harmful. They can inspire. But when indulged endlessly, they drain energy from action. You can spend hours imagining success and still be no closer to it. The key is to use dreams as direction, not as escape. Ask yourself, what small action can I take today to move this dream forward? That question transforms fantasy into fuel. Perhaps the most deceptive internal distraction is the illusion of multitasking. You tell yourself you can do two things at once: listen to a podcast while writing, check messages during a meeting, keep one eye on work and the other on the news. But the brain does not truly multitask. It switches rapidly, burning coins each time it shifts. The result is shallow focus, fragmented progress, and exhaustion without accomplishment. To break this pattern, commit to monotasking. Choose one thing and give it your full attention. When your mind insists it can handle more, test it. Notice the drop in quality, the increase in mistakes, the loss of depth. The more you experience the richness of undivided focus, the less appealing multitasking becomes. All these inner distractions, procrastination, clutter, self-doubt, restlessness, perfectionism, emotional turbulence, fantasies, multitasking, are not enemies to be destroyed. They are parts of you, shaped by evolution and experience. The goal is not to silence them forever, but to understand them, to recognize their voices without obeying them. When you see them clearly, they lose their power to steal coins unnoticed. Mastering internal distractions requires patience. It is not a single battle won, but a lifelong practice. Each day, the whispers will return. Each day, the urge to delay, to avoid, to escape will rise again. But each day, you also hold the choice to notice, to return, to begin anyway. That choice is where mastery grows. When you reclaim your focus from the inner thieves, you realize that the fortress of your mind is not only defended from the outside, but also disciplined within. Your pouch of coins grows heavier, not because the thieves vanish, but because you no longer hand them your treasure so easily. The energy once lost to hesitation, clutter, and fear becomes available for creation, for progress, for the deliberate shaping of your life. You've probably noticed how easy it is to make a promise to yourself in the morning and completely break it by the afternoon. You wake up convinced that today will be different. You'll eat better, you'll finally start that project, you'll spend less time scrolling through your phone. But then, hours later, you find yourself lost in the same loops, repeating the same patterns. It isn't because you lack intelligence or even motivation. It's because willpower is fragile. Habits, however, are armor. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They are the silent engineers of your attention. Every action you repeat without thinking frees up mental space. The question is, who is writing the blueprint? Are your habits being built consciously by you or unconsciously by algorithms, marketing strategies, and the distractions of the modern world? Imagine for a moment your focus as a garden. Every time you water a plant, it grows stronger. The problem is that weeds grow just as quickly when you water them. Checking notifications 20 times a day is a weed. Eating mindlessly in front of the TV is a weed. Complaining without action is a weed. But reading for 20 minutes, journaling your thoughts, moving your body, setting aside uninterrupted work time, these are seeds of strength. Habits are simply the routine watering of either weeds or flowers. Over time, the garden reflects exactly what you've chosen to nurture. This is why building habits that guard your focus is more powerful than relying on bursts of discipline. When habits take root, they run on autopilot, defending your energy without constant effort. The challenge is planting them intentionally and protecting them long enough to grow. Think about the first hours of your day. For many people, their attention is hijacked before they even leave the bed. The phone lights up with messages, news alerts, or headlines designed to provoke anger, curiosity, or fear. By the time breakfast comes, the world has already placed its fingerprints all over your mind. The habit of checking your phone first thing is a thief in disguise. It feels harmless, but it sets the tone for distraction. A simple habit shift, placing your phone in another room overnight, waking up with a journal or book instead, can reshape the entire trajectory of your day. Imagine starting your morning by asking yourself one powerful question: what deserves my attention today? That single practice can become a compass, a grounding ritual that makes you the one choosing rather than reacting. Guarding your focus doesn't require grand transformations. It requires small, repeatable behaviors that reinforce your intention. Habits like scheduling deep work blocks, creating an evening wind-down ritual, or practicing mindfulness for even a few minutes a day function like protective gates. Over time, they become second nature, silently defending your mind from the constant pull of noise. The truth is that habits compound like interest. A single repetition might feel meaningless. Skipping one distraction-free work session won't ruin your life, just as one mindful morning won't transform you overnight. But multiply that act over weeks, months, and years, and the results are undeniable. Focused people aren't magically gifted. They are simply consistent gardeners who've chosen to water their flowers instead of weeds. The challenge many face is persistence during the fragile stage when a habit is just a seedling. Old behaviors feel easier because they've been rehearsed thousands of times. Neurologically, your brain favors the path already carved deep into its circuitry. That's why breaking from distraction can feel like trudging uphill. But every repetition of a new habit strengthens a fresh pathway, turning what once felt unnatural into effortless flow. Here's something to try. Attach your new focus-protecting habit to one that already exists. This is called habit stacking. If you drink coffee every morning, pair it with writing down 3 priorities for the day. If you brush your teeth at night, use it as a signal to put your phone away for good. Linking the new to the familiar gives it a hook, reducing friction and making it stick. Another principle worth remembering is friction itself. Increase friction for the habits that drain your attention, and reduce it for the ones that guard it. If your weakness is late-night social media scrolling, make it harder to access. Log out, uninstall apps from your home screen, or leave your device in another room. If your goal is to read more, place a book by your bed, keep one in your bag, and make it easier to choose reading over doom scrolling. Attention is shaped by the path of least resistance, so engineer your environment accordingly. Rituals also play a powerful role. Rituals are habits with meaning. They carry symbolism and emotion that deepen their impact. Think of lighting a candle before sitting down to write or taking a short walk before beginning your workday. These rituals tell your brain, this is sacred space. This is focus time. Over time, the ritual itself becomes a switch that primes you for attention. One of the most underestimated focus-protecting habits is recovery. People often glorify productivity as endless hustle, but sustained focus requires renewal. Sleep, exercise, hydration, even moments of intentional idleness. These are not luxuries, they are maintenance for your mind. If you skip them, distraction becomes inevitable because your brain is running on fumes. Building habits of recovery isn't indulgence, it's discipline in disguise. It's easy to underestimate the power of small changes because the payoff is delayed. You may not notice a difference tomorrow or even next week, but look closely and you'll see subtle signs. You'll start to feel less reactive. The temptation to check your phone will loosen its grip. You'll begin to experience the satisfaction of completing deep, meaningful work. These are signals that the architecture of your focus is shifting, brick by brick, habit by habit. You are training your mind to trust itself. Every time you honor a small habit, you reinforce the belief that your attention belongs to you. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Eventually, the identity of a focused person becomes inevitable because your habits have built the evidence for it. When you zoom out, habits are not just about saving minutes in your day, they are about shaping a life that reflects your deepest values. A person who consistently invests in habits that guard focus is building more than productivity. They are building clarity, resilience, and ownership. These qualities ripple into every corner of life, influencing how you show up in your work, your relationships, and even your inner dialogue. So, as you reflect on the architecture of your own habits, ask yourself, which ones are silently stealing my focus, and which ones are silently guarding it? You may realize that the battle for your attention isn't dramatic, but subtle. It isn't fought in heroic bursts of willpower, but in the quiet, repeated choices of daily life. That's where the real transformation happens, between the moments, in the rituals, in the repetitions that no one else sees. Distraction rarely announces itself as danger. It slips in quietly, disguised as entertainment, as rest, as something small and harmless. You tell yourself it's just a few minutes on your phone, just one more episode, just one quick glance at the news. Yet when you look back on the week, on the month, sometimes even on years, you realize how much time has been swallowed without you noticing. What makes distraction so dangerous is not the single stolen moment, but the way those moments accumulate. A river doesn't carve a canyon in a day, but drip by drip, flow by flow, it reshapes the landscape. In the same way, distraction steadily carves away at your attention, your creativity, your potential. It takes what could have been deep focus, meaningful progress, or quiet presence, and replaces it with fragments of attention scattered across too many things. If you've ever reached the end of the day feeling strangely tired, yet unable to recall what you truly accomplished, you've tasted the cost of distraction. Your brain has been working, yes, but in short bursts, constantly switching from one thing to another. This switching isn't free, it comes with a toll. Neuroscientists call it attention residue. Each time you shift from one task to another, a portion of your mind stays stuck in the previous task, dragging its unfinished thoughts into the next. The result is a mind always slightly fractured, never fully present. Imagine trying to read a book while someone interrupts you every 2 minutes to start a new conversation. You'd be frustrated, unable to sink into the story. Yet this is exactly what many of us do to ourselves all day, interrupting our own flow with constant distractions. Over time, it isn't just productivity that suffers. The very ability to sustain attention weakens, like a muscle left unused. But the cost isn't measured only in lost time or diminished focus. It runs deeper, into the quality of our lives. Consider relationships. When distraction dominates, conversations become surface level. You listen just enough to reply, but not enough to truly hear. You scroll while sitting with someone you care about, giving them only half your presence. Over weeks and months, that half presence compounds into distance, into the quiet erosion of intimacy. Creativity, too, withers under the weight of constant distraction. Great ideas don't arrive in the middle of frantic multitasking. They surface in the quiet spaces, in the unhurried stretches of concentration where the mind can wander deeply and connect unexpected dots. But when those spaces are filled with endless noise, the sparks of creativity struggle to ignite. There's also a hidden emotional cost. Distraction often disguises itself as relief, but it leaves behind a residue of restlessness. You binge a series to escape stress, but afterward the stress remains, and now you feel guilty for the hours lost. You scroll endlessly, seeking novelty, but end with the hollow sensation of wasted time. This cycle erodes self-trust. Each time you break a promise to yourself in favor of distraction, a small voice inside whispers, "You didn't follow through." Over time, that whisper can become a heavy weight, shaping how you see yourself. To grasp the full impact of distraction, imagine your life as a canvas. Every focused hour is a deliberate brushstroke, adding color and detail to the picture you're creating. But each moment of distraction is like a spill of paint, small on its own, but, repeated often enough, it begins to blur the image. Eventually, the masterpiece you intended is harder to see, obscured by countless smudges. This isn't to say distraction is inherently evil. Sometimes the mind needs lightness, play, or rest. The danger lies in unconscious distraction, when you drift into it without choosing, when it consumes more than you realize, when it becomes the default state rather than the occasional indulgence. The line between restorative rest and draining distraction is thin but critical. Ask yourself, how often do you reach for distraction not out of joy, but avoidance? You open your phone not because you're curious, but because you don't want to face the uncomfortable task ahead. You turn on background noise not because you need it, but because silence feels heavy. These are the moments where distraction isn't feeding you, it's shielding you, keeping you from confronting something real. The hidden cost grows even larger when you consider opportunity. Every hour given to distraction is an hour not given to growth, to learning, to building something meaningful. The book you didn't write, the skill you didn't learn, the idea you didn't explore. Distraction doesn't just take what you have, it steals what you could have become. The world around us is designed to capitalize on this tendency. Companies compete not for your money first, but for your attention. Every notification, every recommendation, every endless scroll is carefully engineered to hook you, to keep you from leaving. In this economy of distraction, your focus is currency. If you don't protect it, someone else will spend it for you. But here's the deeper layer. Distraction shapes not only what you do, but who you are becoming. Each small surrender reinforces the identity of someone who avoids discomfort, who drifts rather than chooses, who reacts instead of directs. Over years, that identity crystallizes. Conversely, each moment you resist distraction, however small, is a vote for the identity of someone focused, intentional, and resilient. This is why awareness is so crucial. When you recognize distraction for what it truly costs, not just minutes, but meaning, you begin to see it differently. You start to notice the moments when your hand reaches for the phone without thinking. You catch yourself before drifting into autopilot. Awareness creates a gap, and within that gap lies choice. Imagine what your life would look like if even a fraction of those distracted moments were reclaimed. Picture the projects finished, the relationships deepened, the inner calm restored. The canvas would be clearer, the brushstrokes more deliberate, the masterpiece closer to the one you envisioned. The hidden cost of distraction is high, but not irreversible. Attention, like any muscle, can be retrained. Every choice to return to focus is a small act of resistance against the pull of noise. Each act strengthens the part of you that chooses presence over drift, depth over shallowness, creation over consumption. Over time, the balance shifts, and the true cost of distraction transforms into the reward of intentional living. Every act of resistance against distraction is like a small flame lit in the dark. At first, the flame flickers, fragile and easily extinguished, but with practice, it grows steadier, stronger, until it becomes a fire that illuminates the path ahead. Reclaiming focus is not about perfection. It is about building habits, rituals, and environments that make presence possible more often than not. Focus begins in the body, long before it shows up in the mind. A restless mind is often just the echo of a restless body. Too little sleep, too much caffeine, or the constant strain of overstimulation. When the body is weary or overstressed, the mind becomes more vulnerable to distraction. You can notice this when you feel the pull to scroll, to snack, to wander. Your body is signaling fatigue, and distraction masquerades as a solution. Yet the real solution lies in rest, in stillness, in rhythms that nourish rather than deplete. The simplest shift toward reclaiming focus often starts with the environment. Our surroundings are like silent architects of behavior, shaping what feels easy and what feels hard. If your phone sits glowing on the desk, it is an invitation to distraction every few minutes. If instead it rests in another room, the invitation disappears and focus comes more naturally. Small acts of design, placing a book where you'll see it before bed, keeping a journal beside your coffee, arranging your workspace for clarity, stack together to create an environment that encourages attention rather than fragments it. Attention also thrives on ritual. Just as a musician tunes their instrument before playing, you can tune your mind before entering focus. This might mean lighting a candle at your desk, writing down a single intention for the session ahead, or beginning with a few deep breaths. These rituals act as signals to the brain. This is the moment to focus. Over time, the ritual becomes a doorway, a reliable path into presence. The practice of focus does not always require long stretches of time. In fact, trying to sustain hours of concentration without training is like expecting to run a marathon without preparation. Focus, like endurance, grows gradually. Begin with short, deliberate intervals, perhaps 20 minutes of uninterrupted attention, followed by rest. This rhythm builds both stamina and confidence. Over weeks, the capacity to remain present expands, not through force, but through gentle consistency. It helps to think of focus not as the absence of distraction, but as the presence of depth. When you give yourself fully to one thing, the world narrows and clarity emerges. Whether it is reading a book, listening to a friend, or working on a craft, Depth invites you into a different quality of time. Minutes stretch, thoughts align, and a sense of flow arises. This flow is not accidental. It is the reward of choosing to stay, to resist the urge to scatter. Still, reclaiming focus requires confronting discomfort. Distraction often sneaks in as an escape from boredom, uncertainty, or difficulty. When you first sit in silence, it may feel uneasy. The impulse to reach for something, anything, will surface quickly. Yet beneath that initial discomfort lies a deeper stillness waiting to be discovered. By resisting the first pull of distraction, you allow yourself to pass through the unease into a state of richer calm. Some find it useful to practice intentional monotasking, the deliberate choice to give full attention to one simple act. This might be drinking a cup of tea without a phone, walking without headphones, or writing a page without switching tabs. These small practices are like anchors, training the mind to remain with one thing, building the muscle of attention in everyday life. Technology, too, can be reshaped from enemy to ally. Left unchecked, it fragments your attention, but when used with care, it can support focus. Setting boundaries, such as silencing notifications, using time-limiting apps, or creating device-free zones, helps reclaim control. Even the act of scheduling deliberate times for digital use transforms it from a constant intrusion into a conscious choice. The goal is not to abandon technology, but to place it back in its rightful role, a tool, not a master. Rest plays an equally crucial role in focus. A fatigued mind cannot sustain attention for long, no matter how strong the intention. True rest is more than sleep. It is creating space for the mind to wander without aim, to breathe without pressure. Walks in nature, quiet reflection, or even simple stillness allow the mind to reset so that when you return to focus, you do so with renewed clarity. The deeper truth about reclaiming focus is that it is less about control and more about surrender. Control tries to grip tightly, to force concentration through sheer will. Surrender allows distractions to arise, notices them, and gently returns to the task. This gentle return is the essence of mindfulness, the ability to notice when the mind has wandered and to bring it back without judgment. Each return strengthens the habit, reminding you that focus is not lost in the wandering, but found in the returning. When you begin to practice these small acts of attention, something subtle shifts. Conversations grow richer because you are truly listening. Work feels more fulfilling because you are immersed in it rather than rushing through. Even ordinary tasks, washing dishes, folding laundry, sipping water, carry a quiet depth when approached with presence. Life itself begins to feel less scattered, less rushed, and more whole. The journey of reclaiming focus is not linear. There will be days when distraction wins, when presence feels far away. Yet even on those days, the practice is not wasted. Each attempt is a seed planted, and over time, those seeds grow into a forest of attention. What once felt impossible, an hour of deep work, a long conversation without glancing at a screen, a walk without distraction, becomes natural, even nourishing. Focus is a gift you can give not only to your work or your relationships, but also to yourself. When you are present, you honor your own time, your own capacity, your own life. You remind yourself that your attention is not cheap, not something to be squandered, but something sacred. And in that sacredness lies freedom. The freedom to choose, to create, to live with depth in a world that constantly tempts you with the shallow. The idea of presence is not merely a skill to cultivate for greater productivity or sharper focus. It is, at its deepest level, a way of inhabiting existence itself. To be present is to acknowledge the only reality that truly belongs to you, the moment unfolding before your eyes. Everything else, whether memory or anticipation, is filtered through thought, fragile and shifting. The present moment is where life is lived, yet it so often slips away unnoticed, hidden beneath layers of distraction and restless yearning. Presence is not something you chase, it is something you uncover. Like a clear river obscured by drifting leaves, it is always there beneath the noise of thought and the pull of expectation. The act of being present is simply the act of noticing, of allowing yourself to see what is here without rushing toward what comes next. This noticing can feel almost radical in a world that teaches you to move faster, reach further, and strive endlessly. To pause, to breathe, to let a moment expand without urgency is to reclaim something profoundly human. Across cultures and centuries, philosophers, poets, and mystics have spoken of this truth. The Stoics urged their students to anchor themselves in what is within their control, the choices they make now, rather than waste themselves on what lies beyond reach. Zen teachers, through koans and silence, sought to draw attention away from the chatter of the mind and back to the immediacy of being. Even in everyday proverbs, you can hear echoes of this wisdom, the reminder to stop and smell the roses, to cherish the fleeting beauty of what is. Presence is not about denying the past or ignoring the future. Memory offers meaning, anticipation fuels direction, but when either dominates, the fullness of life is lost. Dwelling on what has been can turn into regret, while living for what has not yet come can slip into anxiety. The present is the balance point, the place where reflection and anticipation meet without overwhelming what is happening right now. This is why presence feels both fragile and powerful. It can be disrupted by the simplest interruption, yet when it is sustained, even briefly, it can transform perception. A single moment of deep presence can feel more expansive than an hour of scattered thought. Time seems to stretch, not because it has changed, but because awareness has deepened. What was once ordinary, a drop of rain, a line of music, the warmth of sunlight, becomes luminous. Philosophically, presence also confronts one of the greatest illusions of modern life, the belief that meaning lies elsewhere. It is easy to imagine that fulfillment waits in the future, in some achievement or arrival, and that only once you have reached it will you finally be whole. Yet the paradox is that when the future arrives, it too appears as the present, and if presence is not cultivated, the longing simply continues. The promise of someday becomes an endless horizon, always receding. Living with presence means realizing that meaning is not postponed, it is here, woven into the texture of now. Each breath, each conversation, each sensation is not preparation for life, but life itself. This recognition does not eliminate struggle or sorrow, but it changes their shape. Even difficulty, when met with presence, is less isolating. Instead of being dragged into imagined catastrophes, you face what is real in this moment. The weight becomes more bearable because you are no longer carrying the added burden of what if. There is also an ethical dimension to presence. To give your attention fully to another person is one of the rarest and most generous gifts you can offer. In a distracted world, where glances drift to screens and thoughts scatter elsewhere, to listen without interruption, to witness someone without judgment, is an act of respect that affirms their existence. Relationships deepen not through the quantity of time shared, but through the quality of attention exchanged within it. Presence also reshapes how you see yourself. When you are scattered, you often measure life by accomplishments or failures, by what has been ticked off the list or left undone. But in presence, the self is not a project to be perfected. It is an experience to be inhabited. You begin to notice that the inner critic quiets when you are fully absorbed in the moment, whether through creation, conversation, or simple being. The harshness of judgment thrives in distraction. It fades when awareness settles into now. At its heart, presence carries a kind of humility. To be present is to admit that you cannot control everything, that life unfolds beyond your grasp. Rather than resisting this truth, you allow yourself to be shaped by it, to participate in it without needing to dominate it. Humility here does not mean resignation. It means alignment. It is the recognition that life, vast and intricate, invites you not to command it but to join it. There is a quiet courage in this. It takes courage to stop rushing, to let go of the illusion that speed and constant motion guarantee significance. It takes courage to dwell in stillness, where distractions are stripped away and you are faced with yourself as you are. Yet in this courage lies freedom. The freedom to experience life directly, unmediated, unfiltered by endless commentary or comparison. Many fear that presence means detachment from ambition or responsibility, but this is not so. Presence does not eliminate striving, it transforms it. Goals are still pursued, but the pursuit itself is no longer a blur of anticipation. Each step becomes meaningful, not just the imagined arrival. Work gains depth, not because it is a means to an end, but because it becomes an end in itself. The journey matters as much as the destination. The practice of presence often begins in small gestures, taking a slow breath before speaking, noticing the taste of food rather than rushing through it, pausing to observe a familiar street with fresh eyes. All of these open the door to deeper awareness. What begins as fleeting moments gradually accumulates into a way of being, until presence is not something you occasionally practice, but something you naturally inhabit. Presence is not perfection. Distractions will come, the mind will wander, moments will slip by unnoticed. Yet presence is generous. It always welcomes you back. No matter how often you drift, the present moment waits, open and unjudging. This is why philosophers and mystics describe it as home. You can leave it again and again, but it is always there, ready to receive you the instant you choose to return. The recognition that presence is always available, waiting like a quiet room behind the noise of thought, does not mean it comes easily. For most, the mind resists, tugged by habit and conditioned restlessness. The good news is that human beings, across centuries and cultures, have developed practices to draw themselves back into this living awareness. These practices differ in form, yet all share the same purpose: to return attention to what is real, immediate, and unfolding. Meditation is often the first practice that comes to mind, yet its essence is simpler than many assume. It is not about emptying the mind of thought or achieving some lofty state of enlightenment. It is about observing without attachment, noticing the breath as it moves, the thoughts as they arise, and allowing them to drift without grasping. A single breath, fully noticed, can become a doorway. Sitting in silence, letting the rhythm of breathing anchor awareness, reveals how vast and untamed the mind is, and how gently it can be guided home. The discipline of meditation has taken countless forms. In Buddhist traditions, it is seated mindfulness or chanting that quiets the scattered mind. In Hindu practice, it might be mantra recitation, each sound a thread binding attention to the present. Taoist meditation often emphasizes alignment with natural rhythms, blending breath with the cycles of the body and the world. Even within Western philosophy, practices of contemplation have long existed, whether in Christian monastic prayer, where silence and repetition open the heart, or in Stoic reflection, where daily journaling brings the chaos of thought into order. Breath itself is a universal path into presence. Every human being carries it, and yet it so often escapes notice. Ancient yogis mapped elaborate systems of breathwork, not merely as exercise, but as a method of stilling the mind. In Japanese Zen, monks follow the breath until it feels as if body and air are no longer separate. The Sufis, in their mystical dances, use breath to sustain rhythm and devotion, the inhalation and exhalation fusing with the music of their whirling. Breath grounds because it cannot belong to yesterday or tomorrow. It exists only now, reminding you that life is immediate, continuous, and fragile. Stillness, however, is not the only path. Movement can also draw awareness into presence. Martial arts, for example, demand full attention. A moment's distraction can break form or open vulnerability. The samurai treated swordsmanship not merely as a skill of survival, but as a practice of unity between body and spirit, where each strike carried the weight of mindfulness. In more modern times, athletes speak of being in the zone, a state where time dissolves and every motion flows without hesitation. Dance, too, is a practice of presence, each step requiring attention, each rhythm drawing the body into harmony with sound. Craft has also been a vessel for presence. The potter at the wheel, hands steady as clay spins beneath them, feels time vanish into the spiral. The calligrapher, brush hovering with delicate precision, becomes absorbed in the single stroke. Even the gardener kneeling in the soil senses the world narrow to the rhythm of planting, watering, tending. These acts, when performed with care, cease to be tasks and become meditations. Their repetition is not dull but deepening, training the body and mind to inhabit now fully. Storytelling, too, has served as a means of grounding. Oral traditions, where tales were passed from one generation to another, required both teller and listener to enter presence together. The pauses, the tones, the unfolding of words bound them to a shared moment, a space where imagination and reality intertwined. In these circles of firelight, presence was communal, sustained not in silence but in the collective rhythm of listening. One of the most overlooked pathways into presence lies in nature. For millennia, human beings have turned to rivers, forests, mountains, and skies to rediscover stillness. The immensity of the natural world draws attention outward, breaking the cycle of self-centered thought. A mountain does not rush, a tree does not anticipate, the ocean does not regret. They exist fully, and by witnessing them, people are reminded of their own capacity to do the same. The rustle of leaves, the vast horizon, the changing light of day, all of these invite a slowing, a return to the pace of life as it unfolds beyond human urgency. The sacred rituals of many traditions are designed precisely for this purpose, to lift individuals out of distraction and place them firmly in the present. Lighting a candle, bowing in prayer, walking a labyrinth, or even fasting, all are deliberate interruptions of routine. They signal to the mind and body that this moment is set apart, to be lived with awareness. Rituals do not exist to please some distant divinity alone. They are crafted to train attention, to cultivate presence in the midst of life's demands. Even in daily life, without grand rituals or ancient traditions, presence can be found. A meal, if eaten slowly, becomes a meditation in itself. The crunch of food, the aroma rising, the texture unfolding. A conversation, if given full attention, becomes an act of reverence. Silence, chosen deliberately rather than filled, becomes a sanctuary. Presence does not require retreat into monasteries or forests. It can bloom in the ordinary, if approached with deliberate care. What unites these practices is not technique, but intention. They remind us that presence is fragile, easily lost in distraction, yet always recoverable. Each path, whether stillness, movement, craft, ritual, or nature, is a way of saying, here is life waiting to be noticed. The methods differ, but the destination is the same, a return to what has never left. Presence cultivated through practice often reveals itself in unexpected places. A mother cradling her child feels time dissolve into the rhythm of heartbeat and breath. A writer lost in a sentence forgets the clock on the wall. A traveler watching rain streak across a window becomes transfixed by its patterns. These are not extraordinary experiences, but ordinary ones lived with full attention. They show that presence is not an achievement to be earned, but a posture to be adopted. What is most striking is how practices of presence, though scattered across cultures, often converge. Whether in the monastery, the dojo, the studio, or the marketplace, the wisdom is the same. Life is happening here, not elsewhere. The tools may differ, but the truth remains. This is why presence feels timeless. It belongs not to any one tradition, but to the human condition itself. The more it is cultivated, the more it begins to spill into other moments. A practice begun on the meditation cushion shapes how you listen to a friend. The patience honed in, craft teaches you how to wait without agitation. The awareness trained in movement teaches you how to meet uncertainty without fear. Presence is not confined to the practice itself. It expands outward until it colors the whole of life. You have already seen how discipline and ownership of your focus can sharpen your days into tools of clarity and progress. But life has never promised you smooth waters. Storms arrive without invitation. Failures, setbacks, betrayals, unexpected turns. These storms do more than challenge your goals. They directly attack your attention. When something goes wrong, When disappointment weighs heavy, notice how your mind begins to scatter, replaying the mistake, spiraling into self-doubt, imagining every worst-case scenario. Resilience, then, is not merely the ability to get back up, it is the art of re-anchoring your attention in the middle of chaos. Resilience begins with perspective. Imagine a mountain rising against the horizon, battered by centuries of wind, snow, and rain. The storms do not shape its destruction, they shape its presence. It is not weaker for having endured them, but stronger, more defined, more immovable. Your focus can be like that mountain. Every setback that threatens to scatter it can instead carve it into a clearer shape. The question is not whether you will face storms, but whether you will let the storm dictate where your gaze rests. When adversity arrives, most people instinctively hand over their attention to fear. They rehearse failures long after they've occurred. They obsess over what cannot be controlled. They repeat doubts so loudly that the sound drowns out any solution. Resilience demands something else. It asks you to observe the storm without feeding it. It asks you to redirect your attention toward action, not paralysis. This is not a denial of pain, it is the refusal to surrender control of your inner compass. Think back to the times you felt crushed, when you were convinced the setback would bury you. Perhaps it was a rejection letter, the collapse of a plan you'd invested months in, or a betrayal from someone you trusted. In that moment, your attention became a battlefield. One path led to surrender, rumination, bitterness, drifting into distraction. The other path led to growth, choosing to focus on the lesson, the opportunity hidden within the difficulty, the possibility of renewal. Resilience is choosing that second path, even when the first path is louder. It helps to remember this. Resilience is not about being unshaken, it is about being recentered. You will feel the sting of failure. You will feel the burn of loss. But resilience whispers, yes, this hurts, but my attention belongs to what I can build next. The world constantly pulls at your gaze with headlines of collapse, with reminders of what you lack, with temptations to numb yourself. The resilient person notices these pulls but chooses to focus instead on the small step forward. That choice, repeated, builds strength like muscle. Every resilient person builds rituals that anchor them. These are not random habits, they are deliberate practices designed to reclaim focus during storms. For some, it is journaling, a daily act of pulling chaotic thoughts from the mind and placing them onto paper where they lose their power to swirl endlessly. For others, it is movement, exercise that reminds the body it is alive and capable. For others still, it is meditation, the steady discipline of sitting with discomfort without running from it. These rituals are not luxuries, they are lifelines. They keep the storm outside from becoming a storm inside. There is a story of a man who, after losing everything in a fire, refused to fixate on the ashes. Instead, he woke each morning, looked at the wreckage, and chose to sketch designs for the home he would rebuild. His neighbors saw only destruction, but he placed his attention on possibility. Within a year, a new house stood where the ashes had been. That house was not just wood and brick. It was the embodiment of resilience, the ability to guide attention forward when backward was easier. Consider this truth. Resilience multiplies in community. Alone, your attention can be fragile. Surrounded by others who embody strength, your focus grows steadier. This is why support systems matter, not because they remove obstacles, but because they help you redirect your gaze when you're too weary to do it yourself. A friend who reminds you of your worth, a mentor who challenges you to stand again, a group that shares your values. These are mirrors that reflect back the focus you momentarily lose. Resilience also requires brutal honesty. It is tempting to cover wounds with distraction, to drown pain in endless scrolling, binge-watching, or numbing escapes. But avoidance is not resilience, it is delay. True resilience says, "This is hard and I hurt, but I will face it directly. I will not let my attention be stolen by false comforts." That honesty allows healing. Without it, you may look unbroken on the outside, but feel hollow within. One of the most powerful metaphors for resilience is the bamboo. When fierce winds blow, the rigid tree snaps, but the bamboo bends. It yields without surrendering, flexes without breaking, and when the storm ends, it rises again. Your attention must learn to bend. There will be days when focus cannot look like laser-sharp productivity, when grief or loss is heavy. In those days, resilience means narrowing your attention to the smallest act possible. Breathing through the moment, completing one small task, choosing rest instead of collapse. In bending, you preserve your strength to rise again. The key is to reframe setbacks not as evidence of weakness, but as training for strength. A runner grows faster not in comfort, but in resistance. Muscles grow not when resting, but when repairing after being torn. Your resilience develops the same way. Each distraction resisted, each failure reframed, each storm endured makes your attention harder to steal. The very forces that threaten to scatter you become the forces that shape your endurance. Practical resilience comes down to questions you ask yourself in difficult moments. Instead of "why me?" you ask "what now?" Instead of "what did I lose?" you ask "what can I build?" Instead of "how long will this hurt?" you ask "how can I grow through this?" These questions do not erase pain, but they shift attention toward agency. Pain narrows your vision to the wound. Resilience expands it toward the horizon beyond the wound. To live resiliently in the attention economy means refusing to let crises, personal or global, hijack your inner world. It means protecting your focus, not only from trivial distractions but from despair. The world is loud with reminders of disaster, but resilience tunes your ear to reminders of possibility. You cannot silence every storm, but you can decide where to look. In that decision, you reclaim freedom. The storms will not stop. Failures will still come. Pain will still visit. But resilience transforms them from thieves of attention into teachers of strength. Each time you choose to redirect your gaze, away from rumination toward action, away from despair toward possibility, you become unshakable. Not because life is easy, but because your focus is no longer at the mercy of life. The deeper you move into reclaiming your focus, the clearer you begin to see that the greatest threat is not always distraction in its obvious forms. The greatest threat often hides behind opportunity. Those endless invitations, requests, and possibilities that stretch your attention thin. They wear a friendly face. They arrive with the promise of connection, progress, or reward. Yet, beneath their shiny surface lies the erosion of the very discipline that makes true achievement possible. There is a quiet but powerful strength in the ability to say no. It is not harshness, not arrogance, not dismissal. It is instead the firm hand that steadies your steering wheel when the road ahead is slick with temptations. Without this hand, you are pulled into every lane, every detour, every roadside attraction. Before long, you are lost in the noise again. Consider the lives of the people you admire most, the entrepreneurs who built something lasting, the athletes who pushed the boundaries of human performance, the artists whose work still stirs hearts long after their time. What they share is not merely talent or vision, it is the courage to refuse almost everything else. They turned down dinners, ignored trivial obligations, stepped back from short-lived pleasures, and rejected good opportunities because they knew they stood in the way of great ones. Imagine your life as a garden. Every time you say yes to something, you plant a seed. Some seeds are worthy, they grow into tall trees or colorful flowers, but many are weeds in disguise, demanding water, time, and care, yet producing little in return. Without pruning, without discipline, your garden becomes overgrown. The sunlight is blocked, the air does not flow. Your most precious plants suffocate under the weight of what never should have been planted at all. This is why the discipline of saying no must become second nature. It begins with a shift in perspective, understanding that your attention is not endless, your energy is not infinite. Your days are numbered, and each moment invested in the trivial is a moment stolen from the essential. When you recognize this truth, saying no stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like liberation. Still, most people hesitate. They fear rejection, worry about missed opportunities, or cling to the illusion that more is always better. But think about how often yes has cost you. How many projects have been left unfinished because your time was divided? How many mornings have been sacrificed because the night before was filled with obligations you didn't truly want? How many dreams are still sitting on the shelf, gathering dust, because you kept saying yes to distractions disguised as duties? To master this discipline, start with clarity. Define your North Star, the direction you have chosen to travel. When the invitation or request appears, measure it against this compass. Does it bring you closer to your destination, or does it pull you sideways? If it pulls you sideways, no matter how harmless it seems, decline it. Each decision either sharpens or blunts your momentum. Next, develop the language of refusal. Saying no doesn't always mean slamming a door. Sometimes it is a polite but firm boundary. I appreciate the offer, but I can't commit to this right now. Other times, it's a decisive withdrawal. This doesn't align with where I'm focusing my energy. You owe no lengthy explanation, no apology for protecting what matters. Politeness need not be weakness. Boundaries can be both kind and immovable. Another tool is delayed response. In the moment, pressured by the request of a friend, boss, or stranger, your instinct may be to agree. Instead, practice pausing. Let me think about it and get back to you. This space allows you to evaluate without the weight of urgency. Decisions made under pressure often serve others' priorities, not your own. Decisions made with reflection protect your path. There is also power in visualizing the cost of yes. Before agreeing, picture the hours you will give up. Imagine the energy drained, the tasks postponed, the quiet time you'll lose. See clearly what will be taken from your garden. This sharpens your resolve, reminding you that every yes has a price tag. Some are worth it, most are not. The discipline of saying no is not only about others, it is also about your own habits. Each time you indulge the impulse to check a notification, to scroll mindlessly, to chase the latest distraction, you must learn to say no to yourself. Self-mastery is not built on grand gestures alone. It is carved into place by the small refusals, the moments when you deny what feels easy in favor of what creates lasting strength. Think of a warrior sharpening a blade. Every unnecessary swing dulls its edge. Every reckless move weakens its effectiveness. To keep the weapon sharp, he must know when not to strike. Your attention is the same. Without the discipline to hold back, you bleed out energy until there is nothing left for the battles that truly matter. The most extraordinary achievements in history are not the result of boundless effort scattered across endless pursuits. They are the result of concentrated effort, directed with ruthless focus, shielded by the courage to turn away from almost everything else. Success is less about what you embrace and more about what you refuse. In the end, learning to say no is not an act of rejection, it is an act of devotion. Devotion to your vision, devotion to your growth. Devotion to the life you are building rather than the one others would script for you. Every no strengthens your yes. Every refusal sharpens your commitment. Every boundary drawn clears more space for the future you are deliberately creating. The discipline of saying no is the art of ownership. It is the quiet but unshakable declaration, this is my life, my focus, my time. No one else will dictate how it is spent.